Nearly 79,000 Métis call Manitoba home, with the majority, over 46,000, residing in Winnipeg. A growing number of Métis are becoming entrepreneurs, whether they're small business owners involved in construction or the trades. Manitoba Métis are open for business. They're starting to set out a clear path for themselves that they're ready, willing, and able to provide goods, services, and the expertise required to help get Manitobans working. And forging partnerships with industry giants such as Manitoba Hydro is a key to long-term economic prosperity, which was a focus of discussions at the final stop in a series of Métis Economic Development Roundtables held across the Métis Nation homeland. The important dialogue and recommendations coming out of the regional engagement sessions would prove invaluable in forging elements of a Métis Nation economic development strategy. Scott Thompson is the president and CEO of Manitoba Hydro.
And about 18% of my workforce at Manitoba Hydro, which is about 6,400 people, are Aboriginal. About 2/3 of those are Métis people. So we've grown that by about 200% in the last decade. So it's, to me, that's a success, and we want to continue to build on that success.
Manitoba Hydro and the Government of Manitoba have followed through on plans to build a constructive and productive long-term working relationship with the Manitoba Métis. Late in 2014, they signed a tripartite industry partnership called the Kinema Agreement, which means turning the page in the Michif language. An example of the progress can be seen near the Pas in central Manitoba. Here, a major contract is in place between Manitoba Hydro and the Métis Nation. It's a clear-cut agreement to remove trees to make way for a major hydro line running near the community. The contract has created opportunities and hope for a region that has struggled economically. The tripartite Kinema agreement will bring significant economic benefits, including vital high-paying jobs and economic prospects. The deal touches upon a major part of the discussion at the Manitoba Regional Economic Session on the importance of the province, industry, and the federal government to adopt procurement strategies and practices that focus on targets and measurable outcomes.
Procurement policy, they've got to make a shift. And we've also echoed this to Canada. We've told Canada point blank, you look at we have deficits in this country, both in Canada or in our provincial governments, and we're saying you don't have to spend any more new money. Just change your procurement policy. I guarantee you change that a little bit, you will see a mass amount of our business entrepreneurs out there developing these relationships with industry and with public sector.
Cassandra Dorrington with the Canadian Aboriginal and Minority Supplier Council works with Canadian companies to help them understand how to get more diversity in their supply chain. She cited the work that Chrysler is doing in the U.S.
What they do is they actually identify, as Mark said, they put targets out, objectives as to how much money they're going to spend with diverse suppliers. They actually do it, whether it be, as you said, it's hard to find it in the direct line. So if I'm Chrysler, I'm not going to find anyone doing steel over here, right? But in the indirect spend of what I do, I can reach out and identify a number of suppliers.
Dorrington says Chrysler works with diverse suppliers directly or indirectly, which helps build the economic capacity of some of the suppliers. And it all works because Chrysler sets objectives. Al Zanuck says Enbridge's detailed procurement strategy includes hiring and training Aboriginal workers, partnering with subcontractors to provide everything from food catering to gravel hauling.
With the energy delivery assets in southern Manitoba, we've been able to have extensive participation with the Métis community in training, employment, and procurement opportunities. We invested approximately $1 million in these training programs for this project specifically. 100 Aboriginal people were trained for construction jobs, heavy equipment operator, and labor positions. Roughly 645 of our own people, Aboriginal people, were employed for this construction, many of whom came from the Métis community here in Manitoba. This represents approximately 22% of the total construction workforce in that project, and a total employment value of approximately $24 million.
The discussion about procurement opportunities also flowed into the sometimes thorny issue of industry and government's duty to consult with Métis and other Aboriginal groups when it comes to decisions or actions that might adversely affect Aboriginal rights. Al Benoit explained that often consultation and accommodation is an afterthought for government and industry.
But what's important here about moving through this track, this process of industry engagement, is that we need to know way ahead of time that this project is coming. Often what happens is just before they have to put in, or at the time to put in their application for a license, or put into a commission or a board, like National Energy Board, or the Clean Environment Commission, or if it's a smaller project, the day they put in their shovels in the ground, that's when they get a hold of us. But in order to ensure that we can work properly as partners, we need to go ahead of time, like much further ahead of time.
For private and public sector, at the end of the day, you got to deal with Métis and First Nation in the West. There's not a question about it. You got to directly deal with it. You don't have an issue with the Inuit because the population is so small, and traditional homelands, of course, are farther north. So from that perspective, I think it's vital, as Hal was saying, to get into the action earlier. Don't wait till the last minute, the 11th hour, or you're going to see us at a CC hearing, you're going to see us at some kind of an environmental hearing speaking out against your company, which at the end of the day, we're entrepreneurs, we're economic engines, and we'll probably end up supporting your project. But if you leave us the 11th hour, then we're going to end up fighting with you, in which we don't want to do that.
The Winnipeg Economic Development Roundtable concluded industry and government attitudes are changing, and a level of respect and trust is building. The key to a successful Métis economic development strategy is to ensure Métis entrepreneurs have access to working capital to grow their businesses and to forge solid partnerships with the private sector so they can meet the challenges ahead. Procurement policies must include invitations to Métis business owners to showcase the goods, services, and skills that they have to offer. Also, when it comes to duty to consult and accommodate, the public and private sector can no longer consider Métis as an afterthought. Manitoba is considered the heartland of the Métis Nation. The winds of change are blowing strong here, as they are across the Métis Nation homeland from Ontario west to British Columbia. During the past number of years, Métis Nation leadership has been on a determined path forward, focused on achieving economic opportunity and prosperity for Canada's 452,000 Métis. It's a good strategy for the Métis, good for industry and government, and for that matter, good for all Canadians.